Eureka 7 is one hell of a great show. The epic scale of the story that taps into subjects like environmentalism, the aesthetic, and the world building never stops to intrigue me throughout the span of its 50 whole episodes. One of many elements I appreciate in the show is no doubt the malleable designs of the characters. A lot of stories would have their characters transform visually, either in the prologue or at the tail end of the story. If the transformation happens at the beginning, it is probably used as a means to establish the characters and brand them with their motives, in which the audience will then proceed to observe throughout the story. And if the changes happen late or near the end of the show, it represents the character has completed their character arc and has come to a conclusion regarding to their agendas in relative to the story. Female characters cutting off their long and silky hair is your typical example. A change of outlook, forget the past, yearning, and prepared for a new start. Other common examples like a time-lapse sequence, a few glimpses to their past, give us just a little context as to who they were and how they used to look like before jumping back to the present. A younger self, childhood memories, and trauma, etc. All these were exercised to a degree in Eureka 7. But what's truly set the characters in this show apart is one brave step ahead of those general practices. Throughout the course of this epic tale of love and hopes of future generations, we get to see character transformations not just with their minds, but along with permanent changes in their overall appearances in reflection to the events they have experienced, while not breaking away from the core of their design. The most prominent examples are Talho and the main female protagonist, Eureka. Because the show puts emphasis on the more mature, troubled romance between Talho and Holland in parallel with Renton and Eureka's innocent love, my enjoyment regarding to the theme of romance here sprung from the older couple and the side couple of Dominic and Anemone, because my life was all about that Dominic's life. Talho and Holland shared a military life in the past and had come to form this counter-government body called Gecko State to fight for what they believe. Although they had established a relationship way back in the days, we don't really get a sense that they are in a healthy connection throughout the first half of the show. And as we move onwards, we learn that there is indeed a barrier between the both of them that resulted to this uncertain chemistry whenever they interact with each other on screen. To give you some context on their matter, Talho, even though as Holland's current girlfriend, felt that she hasn't really become the one who Holland would consider as his true soulmate yet, while Holland puts Eureka and their mission as priorities, hoping to be the chosen one and fight in the forefront for the change they believe. Even though he knows clearly the spot beside Eureka is meant for Renton, he uses this dedication as an escape from his own problems. Holland also has a, what I would call the first love is always a little special complex towards Renton's long-lost older sister, Diane. So in the eyes of Talho, who loves him more than anyone else, she struggles to find a place to stand within Holland's heart, as his priorities are always reserved elsewhere, away from her. Talho would later accept the fact that she can't shake the man's heart with her influence. Instead of trying to push him back on track using a somewhat passive-aggressive attitude, she would step back and let the waves bring them along naturally, while being fully supportive as per usual. This marks the end of her character arc, as she abandons her outfits and a change of hairstyle, getting away from the facade she had been presenting before that point. For me, this development is one of the most memorable moments in the entire show, perhaps because we experience the relationship of the older couple through the struggling perspective of Talho more so than from Holland. The impact of her transformation hits unexpectedly hard. Now, as a viewer who has grown accustomed to everyone's appearances, we are forced to accept this change along with everyone on board. While I admit it was a little jarring when the moment first struck, it took me a few episodes afterwards to realize the change is permanent and truly appreciate the brilliance behind this much needed transformation. The change that ascends Talho's place in my heart from mid-tier to waifu. In retrospect, Talho's initial design with the revealing outfit was clearly out of character to the kind of person she actually is all this while. Now, think back to when you first lay your eyes upon the lady. Perhaps your first impression on her was similar to what I'm about to say. As a fairly moderate anime viewer myself, and whenever I jump into a show, there's this process which I will look at the cast and begin to insert the cliches based on each of their appearances before I get to know more about them. This could happen as soon as the opening rolls for the first time. How they act, pose, or even design traits like accessories, hair colors, or even the shapes of their eyes. They are already telegraphing part of their characters through visual cues alone. Not because we are judgmental, but because the medium has a mold to work from and has conditioned us to do so. And when I look at the entirety of the Gekko State crew, Talho stands out the most due to her unusual, overly skimpy outfit. My mind immediately went, she must be the character who is very comfortable with her femininity and sexuality. She's what a shallow man would call a simply based on how she dresses, but she would confidently brush off the remarks and scoff at them for not being good enough for her standard. Bayonetta without the dom. But throughout the entire show before her outfit changes, she never once flaunted or made any remarks about her own body. The camera never catches her in any suggestive poses, and there weren't any fan service scenes with her as the focus. Because she's just not the kind of character we expected her to be right from the get-go. She was no Bayonetta all along. We learned that she dressed that way with the intention of catching her loved one's attention, acting out of her age to show her worth as a woman specifically to Holland. It was all a facade in the name of love. It is when I look back and notice all these subtle hints, the weight of her transformation becomes much more pronounced. For all she wanted to fool Holland, she has caught the viewers along. Hence my appreciation of this development grows ever stronger. Also, kudos to the third opening for not spoiling this moment for the audience. At this point of the show, Eureka herself has also gone through her very first design change due to an accident. Someone who used to be a proper-mannered girl with a clean and tidy short haircut has been physically broken, telegraphed by the new design with an even shorter, scruffy hair and some visible scars on her forehead. At the same time, Eureka has also met with an identity crisis as her perception of her own identity as a living being has been muddled even further after the sub-chorale incident. Coupled with the realization of her love towards Renton begins to grow, she becomes conscious on her own appearance around the boy she now adores, hoping to only present the best side of hers at all times. These are reflected by the beanie she dons right after she had recovered from the accident, an attempt to cover her scars and the less feminine hair she possessed at the moment. But along with the change of Talho, she also realized it's futile to be someone she isn't and decided to drop the baggage altogether. Eureka will then go through 3 more alterations by the end of the show, making her having a total of 4 design variants as a single character. The numbers alone is impressive enough, but the cherry on top of the cake is that the design also takes advantage of Eureka being a sculpture to illustrate how the people around affects her as a being, both inwards and outwards. Metaphorically represents the environmental effects done by the human species to the sculpture lifeforms, the narrative of the story. Let me remind you that these transformations are not done by any time-lapse whatsoever. It is just the characters themselves taking the initiative to change, or due to circumstances they have no control over. As I have mentioned, the changes was quite a shocker for the unprepared, so I imagine there must be a subset of people who dislike the alterations they have come to witness. People are always afraid of changes by default. That is why whenever a game or a show is attempting something different by stepping outside of their comfort zone, some people knee-jerk react negatively. I can see some reasonable concerns on Talho's new appearance. Her bangs are quite awkward at first glance, and the floral pattern tattoo under her eye is a clash in tone with her new motherly demeanor. But really, it is at this point we should be attracted towards her kind nature instead of her physical attraction. And that was exactly what I came to terms with. See, the central theme of romance in Eureka 7 is acceptance, accepting who they are both in the past and present. Just like how Renton will accept Eureka no matter her backgrounds and what will she becomes. Just like how Talho had accepted Holland will not be swayed by her actions. She let loose of her grip while keeping an open arms behind his back and believed in him. And with her transformation, it is time for us, the audience, to also accept her change. Even her manner of speech becomes softer and more mature. Long gone is the Talho who would tease the kids with obnoxious physical actions. Now she uses her motherly words instead. And her position switching from being the pilot to a reliable second in command is no coincidence as well. The layers just keep on going. Besides, I actually like the fact that the floral tattoo remains intact on her. I see it as a subtext regarding to her past, as tattoos will stay with you forever due to your decision of adapting one, a time capsule from the past. And that was the kind of dedication and commitment Talho had towards Holland. Plus, it is a very effective reminder of who she was before she has come to this, both for the audience and for herself. I guess that's the reason why the tattoo falls on her face, and deliberately designed under her eyes rather than any other parts of her body. She can't cover it with her new clothes, and we can't miss it whenever she speaks. As for Eureka, before she turns into the third variant of herself, she was given a chance by Sakuya to get her scars healed, but she quickly declines the opportunity without hesitation, signaling she is fine with having them as a reminder moving forward. Once again, acceptance of herself and her past altogether. The character designer and animator Yoshida Kenichi really outdid himself here. He had successfully conveyed so much of the character's evolution through visuals alone, and designing characters with the flexibility to do so in the first place is no small feat. Both Talho and Eureka's core design remains on track despite the shakeups, as Talho retains her purple color code and Eureka's wings complement with her overarching design. Soft edges and the glowy greens match with her silhouette and her color code teal. They are just very pleasant on the eyes. Not to mention, the entire crew of Gecko State is diverse not just in races, but body types and fashion-wise as well. There's more than just storytelling to be gained from having such malleability in the approach. The bonus of retouching the designs of these characters also create an unnerving feeling in the narrative to further enhance the tension we might not feel otherwise. Since the show has always evoked a darkish tone, and now that we realize character can indeed change drastically due to the plot, this vulnerability stamps upon every character in the show, creating this uncertainty looming behind our minds at all times. There's no telling whether one of your favorite members of the radical Gecko State is going to come back in one piece whenever they send out for a fight. Worst case scenario, they could kick the bucket, but losing a limb or two or their eyesight could very well happen. Now with the foreknowledge knowing they are prone to just alter the design no matter who is involved. And if not for the changes of the ladies, the later half of the show where it gets serious will not be as gripping of an experience. The stakes at hand got so much heavier thanks to the aforementioned vulnerability. And that's when you root for the team even more in a personal level. Every time Holland drives off the forbidden mech, I break a sweat, because never once I felt he's going to come back in one full piece. This advantage of softening the so-called plot armor, utilizing character design alone, is something I have not experienced so closely until Eureka 7. I absolutely adore the character design philosophy in Eureka 7. It is both Talho and Eureka that made me realize how impactful it is to convey characters' development through physical changes. There's just a very raw layer to it that is simple yet effective, changing the design with cohesion intact not through a time-lapse but through the events they have been through within the story along with the audience, bound to their flesh and bones. Because what else is more effective that will remind you the bumps and bruises they have experienced than straight up revisualizing their design on screen, alternating your perspective and impression on them once and for all. It makes me wonder why there haven't been more shows that adapt this approach of character design this strongly. In fact, I would like to know some examples from you, shows that have treated their characters in a similar fashion. Let me know in the comments below or Twitter at moonanime9. I will appreciate if you can give me some legitimate obscure example rather than say the obvious like Naruto. Characters transform not by timescape nor a simple switch of hairstyle. And please don't spoil anything for me in the meantime if you will. Just the name of the show is appreciated, and I'll probably give your recommendation a watch. This video is part of a series of videos I've prepared for weekly release, trying to game the YouTube algorithm to kickstart my channel, Moon Anime. So lend me strength by subscribing or share the channel around if you have enjoyed the video. Check out my backlog and future uploads too. Wish you'll stick around in this no man's land of a channel where I talk about anime without season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you from the moon. Jikai on Moon Anime.